day for us to launch the 100th day Unleashing My Superpowers, inspirational stories from women, amazing, phenomenal women across the globe who have made it. I would like to introduce you today to Dr. Cady Coleman. I met Dr. Cady Coleman when I was in Miami. She came to speak to us. I was inspired. I just knew it in my heart that one day, I'll interview her. I'll read her resume and she will be sharing her story tonight. Dr. Cady Coleman, the chemist, a retired U.S. Air Force colonel and former NASA astronaut with more than 180 days in space. She accumulated during 2 space shuttle missions and a 6-month expedition to the International Space Station. She launched and landed aboard Russian spacecraft and acted as the lead robotics and lead science officer during her tenure aboard the ISS, performing the second ever robotic capture of a supply ship from the station. In her spare time, she coached actress Sandra Bullock in preparation for Bullock's astronaut role in the movie Gravity. For some of you who watched it. During her time on the ground at NASA, Cady served in a variety of roles within the astronaut office, including Chief of Robotics. Cady earned a BS in chemistry from MIT and a PhD in polymer science and engineering from the University of Massachusetts in 1991. Cady is a public speaker advocating for inclusion in STEM and STEAM fields and everywhere. She's a technical consultant for many companies. She sits on many boards and she lives in Western Massachusetts with her husband. He's a glass artist with their 2 sons. I would like to welcome you to Cady Coleman. You'll be inspired and welcome. Thank you. What motivated you to take this profession of STEM, and can you take us through your journey, especially in space? I want to know everything.
Well, should I start with space and go backwards?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen just to show, it's a little film. It's about a minute and a half, but I think it captures a little bit of why, when you say, why did you go into STEM? Why did you become an astronaut? I think sometimes the best way to show that is really in pictures. And this is a picture of my crew that I lived with on the International Space Station. And the International Space Station is made up of many, many different countries. In this particular crew, we have 2 Russians, 1 Italian, and 2 Americans. So quite a group. And if you look, you can see I'm the only woman. But we're really just 6 very different people up there. And I just want to show you a little bit of our world. This is what the space station looks like. And this is what, launching. I am actually, on the steps of that rocket there. And then we are right inside. I think you can see my pointer here. We are right inside here. There's sort of a big tin can around our capsule. And there we are in the capsule. It only takes actually 8.5 minutes to get to space, but then it takes quite a while to park. So now we're up on the space station. I love this video where it shows flying through space, working with robots. learning to fix things. Actually, I had already learned by the time I went, but it wasn't something I grew up with. Our dinner table, which is kind of weird shaped, we all have to be people up there. So we bring the things that really bring us joy and make us happy. And the view is amazing. I mean, this is us with the space shuttle and the space station together. But I wanted to take you on a journey out the window, looking at the Earth, looking at, I mean, it looks different every day. Some special times we get to see aurora australis, meaning the northern lights, but in the south of the hemisphere. This is all the lights of the world down there.
Wow.
Everything is a city light or a light in a village. You see the thin atmosphere, you see the stars. And I like to end this video on, you know, for me, what was the home of my ancestors, which is Ireland. So here's that space station, which looks very small, but is actually quite a large place, almost like not quite a city in space, but it's about the size of, you know, many school buses put together. And in that space right now, as we speak, there are 6 people living and working and discovering things by doing experiments that we can't do down here on Earth. So it's a fascinating laboratory. So that's really kind of the space part. But you asked me, you know, how it started. And I have to tell you, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I have to tell you that when people ask me, you know, when did you start wanting to do this? It must have been when you were a little girl. And back when I was a little girl, girls did not do these things. And I would see pictures of people going to space. And except for Valentina Tereshkova from Russia, there was only men in the pictures. And so when I saw the pictures, I thought the airplanes and the rockets were kind of cool. But nothing said to that. It said to me, this could be you. And for me, it wasn't until when I was in college, one of the people that came to speak is Dr. Sally Ride, who's the first American woman astronaut. And I looked at her, and we look a little bit the same. We're about the same size. We have the same hair color. She's a scientist. She's an astrophysicist. And I just thought, wow, maybe I could try to have that job. And that's why actually, you know, the reason I think you do these interviews, the reason I am doing them with you, and the reason that every woman wants to do this with you is because I think it really takes seeing and feeling someone like you to realize this could be you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Cady. I keep getting so inspired, and I can imagine the people who are going to be watching, the girl who is sitting at home, who is going to get an opportunity to watch this. She's going to be speaking and saying, it was this lady that I saw on this video. And that's the reason why I thought, you know what? It's all about the impact. It's all about the difference. And thank you for sharing. That video was amazing, amazing, amazing. It just shows the why. It just shows your why. And you can see you are shining even when you speak, because that's an amazing experience.
Well, you know, I'm going to disagree with you, Patience, because I think it's not just, you know, in terms of who we're trying to reach, which is the new generation growing up. Just seeing me talk about what I do, I mean, it's great, but actually we need bridges between the different worlds. And that bridge in this case is you. I mean, it's really different that we are having a conversation, because, you know, I think it's easy for many girls around the world to look at me and to look at the color of my skin and to think, well, of course she can do that, but how would I do that? But suddenly we start to have more and more togetherness. The fact that you realize that this could be you, this could be them. You make that bridge, and eventually that bridge brings us to Mars.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I agree.
It's true.
It is absolutely true. It is absolutely true. Cady, you mention that you saw this lady, right? And she's the one who actually motivated you? Did you actually have also like a coach or a mentor or a sponsor during your journey that you've spent in this career?
I have a bunch. You know, for everyone, every one of us is different. And there are some people, some women, some men, who have an inner voice inside them that really know just what they really are passionate about doing, and then they go and do that. And I think there's about 4 or 5 of them on this planet, okay?
Yeah.
But there's not a million. And I mean, but my point is that so many of us actually find our way through talking to other people and looking at other people and reading about other people and thinking about what part of that is me, what part of that could be me, but I have more preparing to do.
Yeah.
And for me, I am especially one of those people. I like to talk to people about what I'm trying to do. Sometimes they help me figure out what that is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gives me more confidence in my journey forward. And in my lifetime, whether it is my, fourth grade teacher when I was about probably 10 years old, saying to me, Cady, you're kind of shy. What if you pretended not to be shy? Why don't you try that for a day? And look what happened, right? And and then there's a high school teacher that really loved chemistry so much, and she
Yes.
just thought chemistry was the whole world, and she was sure. She was just completely sure. I mean, she never said that to me, but I could tell, and she was sure that I could be a chemist, and that assurance meant a
Yeah.
lot to me.
Yeah.
And it meant enough to me that I applied to a school, one of the best in our country, to go and study science. And actually, I applied there, but I wasn't actually going to go to a school like that only did one thing, and that people didn't even really talk or have fun or tell stories or have parties or have friends. They only studied. That's what I thought about that school. And it's called the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. Now, I don't
MIT.
think this is the only school in the whole world to go to. But for me, when I went up to visit, because my mother made me go and try it, she did. I said, Mom, I don't want to go to some nerdy school. But, she made me go and
A nerdy
try.
school. I love that.
And I went, and I found, actually, shockingly, people, girls, guys, just like me, that were really interested in technical subjects, but also, liked to be funny, liked to play jokes, liked to tell stories, play music, have friends, all those things. And so the fact that someone encouraged me to go and kind of dip my toe in the water and see before I made this decision made a big difference to me. And over the course of that journey, I mean, there's college, and for me, there's graduate school, there's my career in the military. They gave me a scholarship for college. Otherwise, I could not have gone to college without working at the same time and going to school. So for me, that was an important sort of trade. I think
Yeah.
I think every one of us should do some service to
Yeah.
our planet,
Yeah.
to our Earth, to the place that we come from. It doesn't have to be the military. It doesn't have to be the government. It has to do with thinking, what can I give that others need? So I think everyone needs to do some of that. I was very privileged to do that in a way that helped me have an education. But through all those journeys, I have had people that help me along the way. And there's a reason for that I think is really important, patience. And that is, I ask for that help. Even today, even yesterday, I am always asking people, a little bit for their opinion, but more to understand their journey, much as you're doing today.
Yes.
And I think that if you just assume, when you see a picture of someone in a magazine or in a book, and you assume that they were born, they grew up, they always knew that they were just kind of waiting until they did all the things that got their picture in that book or on the internet, it's not true.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that way. It's a journey, and there's sort of down parts of the journey, and there's up. And to really have a journey that works, I think you need more information than you yourself can have. And you have to ask for that help. And everyone will love to give it to you. And if for some reason someone doesn't, they don't have time, they're busy, or they don't see you, well, go on to the next.
Absolutely. If you don't ask, the answer will always be no, because you will never know. The answer will
That is
always be
true.
no if you don't ask. It's a
I
very
really agree.
interesting observation, and throughout my interviews, I'm hearing this. Just going out and asking, because you'll never know. And even as I reflected on this myself, I realized where I had a breakthrough, even my epiphany moments, it was because I asked. Just like when I asked you, I reached out to people. If I didn't reach out to people, I wouldn't have had any interviews at all. No one would have known I'm busy with this project. Thank you for that insight. So I would say, in terms of your epiphany moments, you picked quite a few, particularly in terms of the decision and going to college, MIT, and some of the aspects in terms of what propelled your career. Is there anything else that you would like to add? What actually propelled your career? What were those epiphany moments like? This is what took me to the next level.
I would say gathering tools, gathering things that can help you succeed, things that help you have a path. You know, an example, it's maybe a funny example to you, but I never did athletics in high school. You know, when growing up, I didn't do very many. I didn't feel like I was very good at that. And so I didn't like it very much. And then I was an exchange student in Norway in between high school and college. And I loved living in Norway. I also
Okay.
loved bread and cheese. And so I wanted to
Mm.
lose some weight. And I lived with a family that was very sports oriented. And
Oh.
they taught me that it wasn't so much that I had to be good at this, it's that it had to be important to me. And if it was important to me, then that was enough. But the second part of what I learned that was really, I'd say, you know, a moment for me
Yes.
was I became actually quite athletic. It was never amazing, but I realized I would be running a race and I would be running and running and running, and
Yeah.
I would be so upset because I was so tired and breathing hard, and I mean, I felt terrible. And then I would finish and I would actually have done really well in the race.
Yeah.
So why did I feel terrible? Because I was running actually quite fast. But inside, I'm just focusing on the, oh, I feel terrible. What if I'm like really tired? What if I'm too
Yeah.
tired to finish? And I learned to speak to myself, to say to myself, I am running my race. I am running my pace. And that's an example from running. But I apply that example whenever I am studying and learning and feeling like I don't know enough, whenever I am wearing a spacesuit and practicing in front of a lot of people and feeling like I'm just not going fast enough or doing well enough. And then I pretend that I am doing really well. And then that helps me do really well. And I turned out to be a much better than average spacewalker. And I also became actually not the smallest person to ever do a spacewalk, but the smallest person to get to be on the spacewalking team up on the
Ah,
space station. And I think that
wow.
those kinds of achievements come from, at least for me, a technique, a tool. It comes back to saying, I need to make sure I have a lot of tools in my toolbox when situations come up that challenge me in order to succeed. So acquiring those tools, that's preparation. So I believe in being prepared.
Oh, toolbox, well done. I will have my toolbox all the time. It's my own race. I love that because oftentimes we look at other people
Mm-hmm.
and we run and we don't even know their story, and they're running faster than us, and we end up tripping because we're watching them rather than watching our own race, our path. It's very, very profound. You're running your own
I agree.
race. Yeah. while running your own race important. I want to ask you barriers to career advancement for women in STEM. We are in the fourth industrial revolution. We're moving into the fifth industrial revolution. We've got robotics, digitalization, and all that. What are some of those barriers that you potentially faced, and what do you think should actually be done for those women who are feeling those barriers?
Well, if you'll give me a second, I would actually share my screen again in just a
Okay,
second. Let me just get to where I'd like to show you. Okay, so give me a second.
no problem.
Because I think a picture sometimes can really
And absolutely, it does say a better story.
so when you say, what are the barriers? And I don't know if what your screen looks like, Patience, but I'm actually having to minimize all our little windows so that we don't cover up the faces of the other guys on my crew. But this is my space station crew as well as the shuttle crew that came up. So the space shuttle came up, and then we had a mission together. And um, and so you see us with President Barack Obama, meeting the president
Yes.
and sharing our mission with him. And I think that one of the barriers that faces women is that for whatever reasons, and there are many of them, I think that the capabilities that women bring to the table,
Yeah.
especially in jobs that involve science, technology, engineering, math, and basically where they are unexpected, I think sometimes it is hard to see the capabilities that women bring to these jobs. And I like to give an example of this picture where I think it's very easy to see me in this picture. You really can't miss me, right?
We
I'm the
can
one
miss you.
wearing a different different color shirt. I'm the only woman. And so I think I stick out in this picture.
Yes.
And yet everyone in this picture actually has capabilities that they bring to the table
Yeah.
that we don't see, that people
Yeah.
don't immediately think of. And
Yeah.
I'll show you then another picture. Whoops, I'm always doing this a little bit there. This is a picture from one of my favorite movies, but more, I think it's actually just really a quite important movie. And it's called Hidden Figures. And it's about the life of Katherine Johnson. And Katherine Johnson just passed away at the age of 102. Until literally the day she passed away. She's so wise, she's so smart, and she's got ideas, and she's willing to share them because she knows that they're important. And this is an actress playing her in a movie. And yet you look at this picture. I mean, Katherine Johnson was a mathematician who
Yes.
designed the formulas. She's the person who figured out how do we get people off of our planet into space and back home again, even off the planet to the moon, around the moon, on the moon, and back home again. She is one of the mathematicians, and actually one of the main mathematicians that figured those things out. She was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And yet we didn't really know her story for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
Her work wasn't recognized, and it wasn't because people didn't like her. It was
Yeah.
because they couldn't see her, which
Yeah.
is why we call this movie Hidden Figures. And yet look at this picture. I mean,
Yes.
she's a woman of color. In almost
Yes.
every photograph I've seen, she's wearing a dress of color. In this picture, she's with the men of Mission Control. At that
Yes.
time, white men wearing white shirts,
Yes.
skinny black
Yes.
ties. And so, but I think it's such an important picture, just like this one here, is
Absolute.
that really we didn't
Yes.
see her. She was
Yes.
not hidden at all, and yet we didn't see
Yes.
her because we didn't look.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here. And I think that all of us need to realize that, I know that I walk in someplace, and in my mind, it's clear to me what I could contribute. Oh, I could help them with this. Oh,
Yes.
I would be great at this. And I actually forget that when they look at me, often just because of where they grew up, the
Yeah.
way they grew up, maybe because of their own fears, for whatever reason, And many of them are actually quite good reasons. I mean, they're not bad people. There are reasons that people don't see each other. And I
Yeah.
don't mean just women and minorities. And so really, I think, first of all, two things. I think it's our job to really look for what others bring to
Yeah.
us and
Yeah.
to the mission that we are
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Meaning, if you have a job, what is the mission of that job? How
Yeah.
can they help? Even if you
Yeah.
don't particularly like them, even if
Yeah.
they're not nice to you, even if they don't see you, you have a mission, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to realize that everyone, including you, but including even the people that you can't see,
Yeah.
they have a
Yeah.
mission. And I think it's also, I think, smart and strategic to realize that when you are trying to contribute, it's a fact that not everyone knows what you bring, and it may not seem fair, but you have to actually communicate that to them. And it really doesn't seem fair. It has to be in a way that they can see it.
Yes.
So you have to be
Yes.
creative.
Yeah. Very creative. Very, very creative view. I've touched an important point, and I've always used this in my entire career, being creative, because to your point that it's either unconscious bias where already, because the brain is already filtering, they are good people, but the brain
Mm-hmm.
just automatically just filters based on those unconscious biases.
Mm-hmm.
And you're communicating, but they're not listening. They are not seeing the contribution, and they're not
I
bad
agree.
people. And it's not like they're doing anything deliberate, but the brain has already filtered that, no matter whatever that you're trying to contribute. So you've got to be creative, to your
It's
point, and that's
true.
an important point, being creative. And also coming in with the fact that not everybody is saying, I don't want to listen to you, but it's because that voice at its subconscious level, it's
Mm-hmm.
filtering.
Right.
It's filtering those messages.
I want to give you an example of, I mean, we all have unconscious bias,
Yes.
but early in my career studying chemistry, we had 10 people to choose from to have a lab partner. Actually, we had 11. We were a group of 12. There were two women. They were already lab partners. They were friends. They were going to work together. And so it's one other woman and a whole bunch of guys. And I didn't know her. And she was a transfer student from another school. And I thought, and she looked like Miss California. She was tall. I mean, I'm short, right? She's tall. She's blonde. She's beautiful. And I
Yes.
just thought, I don't know if she's really smart. I thought that, Patience. I thought that. Meanwhile, she looks over. Apparently, she's told me this since. She said she looked over and she said, nobody who's so cute and funny like that could be a good chemist. And so we picked different lab partners. And that lasted, and they were very great lab partners. They were guys. But that lasted, I mean, we were lab partners with those guys for a semester. But then for
Yes.
the next few years, she and I were lab partners together
Oh,
because we became very, very good friends. Now, were we wrong, Patience? We were incredibly
very,
wrong.
I know.
And so you really have to take this look at yourself. And when we
Yeah.
when we talk about being creative, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you basically have a choice. You come in to do something. You want to have a job where it just speaks to you, and you want to have this job, and you apply, you get there, and then you realize you're asking something, and you just think, oh, this person, man or woman, they just don't see me. They
Yeah.
just don't see me. And you can say that to yourself 100 times and focus on that. Or you can say, they just don't see me. How can I get them to see me?
To see
What
me.
is the language that they understand? How can I
Aha.
connect with them? I kind of think I might not even like them because, well, it sort of hurts my feelings that they don't see me, right? But whether you like them or not, first of all, you may find that you do. Find those places to meet. Find out what's
Yes.
important to them.
To
And often
them.
I think what you find is that what's really important to them is the mission. They are passionate about that job. They love that job and they really want that job to succeed. They're not sure about your capabilities because of the way they've been brought up or
Yeah.
whatever. And so this is actually, I think, one of my most important points is that when it comes down to it, you need to perform. You need to show them that you can do the job. There's
Deliver.
all the thinking about how do I convince them, but when it comes down to it, you need the data that shows that you are contributing and that you should be where you are and you should be where you're trying to get. And to do that, you need facts on paper, whether it is the facts of your education, of what you studied, how you studied, whether it is the facts of the places that you have worked, the background that you bring. And so, especially about the background that you bring, you know that, I mean, I'll give you actually an example, which is, I think, for women, very common, is being at home, taking care of a family. I mean,
Yes.
this is multitasking, right?
Mm,
And
absolutely.
when is multitasking really good in a job? Oh, almost always. So when you're thinking of applying to some job and you think, well, but I'm going to give you the example of myself. I mean, I did a little bit of work outside of school, but I was home cooking dinner for my family and being with my little brother and sister. And so realize this is a skill. Put it on
Yeah.
your application. Make sure people know who you are and what you bring. Don't worry what the examples look like, but also frame the examples in a way that people realize. I mean, when someone was applying to be an astronaut and they wrote on their application that they ran a summer camp for like a bunch of kids, like 100 kids, I
Yeah.
thought, wow. I mean, they might just think,
Wow.
oh, I had this summer job, but they took care of kids. They understood parents, they understood safety, they understood procedures. I thought,
Yes.
sign them up.
It shows you
So
something about them. Tells you something about them. Awesome. That's awesome. Awesome, Katie. Awesome, awesome. We spoke about work-life balance briefly, and you are a mother, you're a wife. How did you balance going away and away from your family? And what can you actually share with the other women who are struggling right now with life work balance? What should they be focusing on?
I think that everyone inside them knows, what's important to them. But I do think people often ask, how do you do work-life balance? How do you do all these things? First of all, I definitely have help and I ask for it.
Yeah.
When I think we have this phrase that it takes a village, and it certainly does. And especially, in our family, we had two parents, my husband and I, who were geographically separated. And so essentially single parents, both of us. And so it's getting the help that you need at the right time. You can have 12 people on your list to be babysitters, and yet, it's never enough. You need number 13. And I call them, right? But in the bigger picture, I think what's important to me to convey is that it's always a process. There's not some solution where you realize, oh, if I do this in my family life, then everything will be set. And that's running, and now I'm off working. It's always a changing process. Your children are just in different ages. Your husband or wife may be different ages. I mean, and it doesn't have to be husband, wife, kids. It's about the rest of your life and balancing that with your passion for success in the workplace. And I think the key is that it's not about balance, it's about integration. I mean,
Integration.
both, it's not that one is more important than the other. They're both important to you. And it's about how to be, clever at how to integrate.
Yeah.
Is it that, how do you, have time and for your family and time for work? Figure out what really makes sense to you
Yeah.
and be strong about the choices that you make, but realize that it's just an ever changing situation.
Yeah.
To me, integration is a better word than balance, because balance implies perfection, and it
Mm-hmm.
implies a steady state.
Mm-hmm.
When, this is like waves on the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really about having something that is very adaptable, a style that can adapt when things are like this, things are like this.
Yeah.
It's about integrating all these different parts.
Integrating. I love that word. It is integrating, because balance is kind of like, you're always, it's very unstable. It may move here and one suffers and then the other one goes. True.
I think that's actually a pretty neat way to think about it.
Absolutely. I agree with you. If you were to run into your teenage self, what would you tell that teenager?
Well, it makes me feel like I use a stronger voice when I think about the teenagers that I even see today. And that is that, I'm a very optimistic person,
Yeah.
but I'm going to say that being optimistic about your skills, being optimistic about your place in the universe, that is the right thing to do. And at the same time, no matter how sure you are that you are supposed to be somewhere, do something, I think it's incredibly important to realize that your world and the tools that you use need to be bigger than what you can see. No matter how smart you are, no matter how visionary you are, you are having a place in an entire world with a lot of different kinds of people, and you need their help. You need to understand them. You absolutely need more than just what you can see, no matter how smart and visionary you are.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, just realize that you can't just go forward. Even though it's really important to go forward, you have to keep a little eye out here and include things and people along your journey, because otherwise I really am not sure that you can get to the forward place you're trying
Yeah.
to for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always about people, because we are in a universe where there are people, and people also have their own vision and their own journeys. How do you
Mm-hmm.
integrate also your life? Still
Mm-hmm.
focusing on your goal, but you work with people.
Well, and I'll give you an example. Sometimes I've worked with people who are brilliant. I mean,
Yeah.
they see, well, actually, I've worked with a lot of brilliant people. I'm very privileged to say. But there are some people that, they have these amazing ideas, and they're like, we should do this. Here's the equation. We need to build this. And they're
Yes.
just going forward. But it actually takes more than what they can see. I mean, they are the ones who uniquely can see that point of light, like
Yeah.
looking at the camera, they can see
Yes.
that point of light. But what they don't see is what's happening underneath them and in back of them and around them. And that is a whole bunch of other people that are supporting them, that are realizing, oh, they don't understand that, okay, we need to hire people, and they need to be people who are like this and this and this, not all the same. So there's people supporting the visionary one,
Yeah.
and there's people cleaning up, or, I mean, so realize that even if you think you're alone and going forward, there are people in your world that you don't see that are making this possible for you. And so I think you'll go forward in a better way if you understand that you are part of the universe
Yeah.
progressing forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said, Kelly. Well said. Well said. Everybody has a part that they play. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
especially as leaders of organizations, every single person from the cleaner, because if the cleaner doesn't come to work, the place is dirty. And now with COVID, there's no cleaning, people are going to be infected. Just one little thing that just doesn't go well, that person has an important role in the organization. No matter how some people think it's so small, we've seen a lot of organizations where things have just gone another direction because of one thing that they thought was small, but it can have a
Mm-hmm.
huge impact.
It's
Thank you.
true.
Thank you for that. Do you have any books that you, or I think we did speak about it, and any favorite quotes that you have, or not really?
Um, well, I do have a phrase I've been thinking a lot about lately, and it's not mine. It belongs. I think really, it came up in the UN when they began to have more and more groups, not just countries, but groups that were part of the UN. And this phrase is nothing about us without us. And and that means that, actually people like you, people like me, I mean, we're trying to do some things and we have good ideas. And I think that both of us, and that's why we like each other, both of us really so much want everyone in the world, and especially girls and minorities,
Yeah,
to understand that they play such an important part in our world. And I'm trying to do everything within my power to make that possible.
yeah,
And I think what I overlook sometimes is that I think I'm doing the best thing, but actually I really need to incorporate the point of view of people that I'm trying to help.
yeah,
That I can be empathetic, but I can never actually really understand someone else's world unless I include them,
yeah,
unless I make sure that their point of view is
yeah,
present.
yeah,
And so I just think that it's really important to realize that you can think you're doing your mission, and yet the thing you always have to do every day, all day, is think, I'm doing this and this is good, but how much more could I do? And have I included all the people that are really part of this mission? Have I asked them? How many
ah,
times do we hear things from our kids
yeah,
and from kids that we teach, where you just go, oh, that's a really good question.
yeah,
I mean, they are very wise about their own world. And
yeah,
after a while, we actually grow up thinking that only a certain number of things are possible. We
yeah,
really get sort of narrower. And so bringing up the point of view of, what is your world? The kids,
yeah.
but also different people our own age, what does your world look like? I think we
Mm,
all need to accept the fact that as we grow older, as we grow further in our career, our point of view narrows. And so always trying to have it be bigger, mostly with the input of other points of view, it's
yeah.
important every single day.
Wow, that's very profound. It actually even makes me feel hearing the other younger women, what is their points of view about this? I'm doing a survey, but it's including other women.
Hmm.
What are the challenges that they're facing and how do they see the future? So I've got a survey that I'm doing apart from the interviews, but that's a very important point. Thank you.
So, Patience, I love that you're doing a survey where you're asking people, and you're asking different kinds of people, and different
Yeah,
people who are passionate about different kinds of things,
yeah,
people who live in different places around the
yeah,
world. And so often, the best we can do is to design a solution that makes sense in the world that we live in.
yeah,
And yet each of us lives in different worlds, and these solutions need to be more global. But the other thing I love about what you're doing, Patience, is that people are people have a lot of good solutions. They have a lot of good
yes,
strategies. They've formed organizations and are leading them that are doing really important, successful work. But the sharing of solutions is not actually done enough. And I think
yeah,
that your platform is sharing solutions.
yeah,
And I love it when we don't waste good work.
yes, yes. That's the legacy. Let's share the good solutions. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. Katie, I think I'm going to ask just one last question. I know we're kind of like running, out of time. And just one question. Maybe if you want to summarize, I know you've covered a lot, but if you just want to summarize like 3 key strategies that women who are struggling at this point in time, especially those who are struggling to break the glass ceiling in professions, right? What can they learn? What are those strategies that they can learn from you to succeed in a male-dominated work environment?
Patience, I can only share my own strategies, but some things that are important to me are to talk to people who understand me and who will encourage me.
Yeah,
Often for me, that's other women. It's also many times guys. But, look for the groups that when you are with them, you feel like yourself, that
yeah,
remind you that who you are is exactly perfect. Even if you have more work to do, tools to gather, those kinds of things that just remind you that being you is really important and that you have a mission, you have work that you are doing that is going to change the world. Every one of us can change the world,
yeah,
but even somebody who's done a job like mine needs to be reminded of that. And so gathering your village, I think, is really important. Making sure that you are prepared. And by that, I mean that when you have a chance to learn something, to
yeah,
be more ready, maybe more ready than you feel like you need to be, but it shows someone else that you are ready. Make sure that your qualifications and what you bring to the table are really easy for other people to understand and to see. And it may not feel fair, but you have to actually express that to them in ways that they can understand, whether it's statistics or on paper or
yeah.
on the computer or showing them a range of things that you've done. Realize that not everyone can see you, and it's actually up to you to make sure that they can in order to accomplish the work that you know inside you are meant to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Cady Coleman. I would have asked you more about how did it feel on space, but we don't have much time. Thank you so much. I don't want to take too much of your time, but this was profound,
Thank you.
phenomenal insights, and I've learned so much myself, a lot. And I think the audience is just gonna fall in love with everything. You are impacting lots of people. Your story is amazing, Cady, really.
Well, as are you, Patience. And I meant what I said, that what's unique about what we're doing together is that, one person can't reach everyone, two
Yeah,
people can't. But actually, you know, between you and I and the other women that you're interviewing, we make bridges
we
to
make
worlds that neither
bridges.
you or I alone could get to.
Could get to
And we reach
bridges.
girls and women who need to see us and realize,
Yes,
oh, they have things to contribute as well. But it's about the
absolutely.
fact that, one person then creates many. And you're doing
Yes.
that. And I really appreciate it. And I love being part of your project.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for this interview, Dr. Cady Coleman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.